are we in a video game crash? Now, before I begin, I actually want to bring up what actually was the video game crash in the first place. It's important to keep that in mind to be able to help identify a video game crash if and when it happens. And a video game crash, when it happened in the 80s, basically, people got fed up with games because the quality was so low that people just stopped buying them. So the prices went down, and people thought it was a fad. Now, we know now that video games is not a fad. But just because it's not a fad doesn't mean that the market won't or can't crash. It still can. The quality of games can be so low where people stop playing them for a period of time, which would leave room for competitors. Now, here's the thing, right? There is a lot of discourse online of people saying, oh, this game is bad, it takes advantage of people. And if you read only people online, what they're saying, you would think, oh, this game would do terribly. Yet, look at Diablo 4. That's a game everyone's been crapping on. Everyone hates the game. Yet, the game's made millions upon millions of dollars. You don't hear about Microsoft saying, oh, we're going to shut down Blizzard, because Diablo 4 is making a bunch of money. Now, the thing is, right, if you actually talk to people that are the people actually interact with these games and play these games, the reality of the matter is they don't care. Because I realize a lot of people try and explain the reasons to why people play these games as something that's really deep. Well, the truth is, it's a really shallow reason. They just play the game they like and that's it. Because playing a video game isn't as much of a logical decision as it's an emotional decision for many people. You know, it's as simple as, oh, this is the game I like playing, so I'm going to play it. You know, the elements of the game people don't like? Yes, but there's elements of the game people don't like in every game. So it's really hard to set a line of what's bad and what's good. You know, and people like to justify the game they played. And, you know, people are people of habit. They usually have 2 or 3 games they play, and those are like their main games.
Are we in a video game crash? Right, okay, so let's be honest. The majority of news coming out about gaming at the moment has been like a constant spiral of doom and gloom and misery.
It makes sense though, because there are so many layoffs that obviously it's a sign that there isn't as much money being made as there used to, which is a sign of overhiring during COVID. So it partially makes sense.
And it's just constant. And at present, gaming history is literally unfolding before our very eyes. We are living through something that people in 10, 20, 30 years are going to talk about, very much like we all talk about the video crash of 1983. And it's a very negative portion of history at the moment. So I wanted to discuss with you basically how the gaming industry has ended up in such a mess this time round, and whether we're already in a crash or whether we are literally charging towards one. And I feel like the obvious place to start with this is back in 2020 in the pandemic.
That's
During
a really
the
good place to
pandemic,
start.
gaming was literally the saviour of people in lockdown. Everyone's stuck in their homes, they're furloughed from work, they've got nothing to do, and gaming was just...
Not only gaming, the entire entertainment industry spiked because that was the only thing to do. You can only be bored for such a period of time doing nothing before you say, all right, well, I might as well do something with my time. And, you know, people no one was working. When has there been a period of time where nobody's working? Right? I can't think of one. That was the only time I know in my life, or really ever, where everyone just stopped working.
Doing really, really well. A lot of people needed it to escape the drudgery of being locked in their houses. There was only 3 choices: social media or TV. Well, you couldn't watch sports anymore because no one was allowed to even play sports in the first place, let alone
that
get
was
to watch
really
it on
weird
TV.
too.
Therefore, gaming was pretty much one of the only options for many people. And the gaming industry...
You know what's weird? Gaming and Twitch or YouTube, because I would say that's also social, right? That's like watching stuff like TV in a way. That actually lends itself very well to video games, because there are a lot of people who have YouTube or a Twitch stream in the background while they're playing a game. And I realized that the main people that watch Twitch streams are people that have it in the background. You know, I don't know many people who watch a Twitch stream and only a Twitch stream. unless it's late at night and they're laying in their bed and they don't want to do anything, right? And even like YouTube, right? A lot of people I know will watch YouTube while they play a game. So I think this actually lends itself very well, where we've seen both of these things go up together.
As a result of that, was absolutely booming, and to an extent they saw themselves as pandemic proof, as in like the whole world was burning down around them, yet they were growing and growing. It was like nothing could stop them. Through this period, did the gaming industry gain a false sense of security? Well, one thing is for sure, according to the news,
By the way, I think it definitely did, because you know, so many people were hired, which in a way, you know, if you think about COVID, how many people didn't have a job because of COVID, it makes sense that they hired so many people. But, you know, it looking back, it was way too many.
gaming industry is constantly complaining about not making enough money, considering the vast amount of cost that they're putting into everything, with how many hundreds of millions this cost and how many hundreds of millions that cost. Well, of course, they're probably not going to be making the money back on it. But this has seen various companies, as a result of that, laying off thousands and thousands of members of staff to basically try to meet shareholder promises. Multiple expensive AAA games aren't hitting the sales figures expected or needed, essentially. And
You know what it is too, right? It's really hard to make a good AAA game that sells well, because, you know, a lot of the games that did well could be counted to, oh, the quality is bad. But then there are games that have good quality that also don't do well, you know, and there are more factors up, like what do people want to play? And, you know, look at Power World. That was a game that wasn't made by a AAA company. That was made by some schmuck in his room. I don't know if he had an office. Just made the game, you know? And that's a game I think, you know, does have some AAA quality to it. That's not a AAA game. And when those are the people that's competing with AAA games, it's really hard to justify more indie game studios or indie game games that are made by 20 plus people when you're competing with one guy that spent a year or two making a game that does well. Because the thing is too, is even if that guy failed, the guy that made Power World, there are so many people that are making games and could put it on Steam that there's basically so much competition from individuals that is what AAA studios have to compete with.
games like Suicide Squad and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth are like prime examples of this. I'm not even going to go into like the details about each of those. I've made a video about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Square Enix only last week. So if you want to know a bit more depthy information on that, go find that now, or at the end of this video. Others are using the excuse that basically the rising cost of game development is making predatory microtransactions an essential part of gaming's future for it to be sustainable. An example of this would be Tekken 8 stealth dropping paywalled features only after receiving glittering, sparkling reviews, which
I actually don't think this is the case, because the truth is this works and people actually don't really care. You know? And that sucks to say, but it's true. Now, you might think, well, look at the Helldivers situation. The Helldivers 2 situation. Well, that seems similar at first, but there's a key difference, which is having a PlayStation account tied to Helldivers doesn't cost anything, right? And the whole goal of doing it is to try and get people to eventually buy a PlayStation. So all the negative pushback actually went against the entire premise of having someone have a PlayStation account in the first place, where it didn't make sense to draw this line in the sand that was going to piss people off. Where decisions made about money that piss people off, do you know what the executives look at, or the managers look at? They don't look at Twitter to see, oh, look, this guy on Twitter's upset. I'll tell you what they look at. They look at the numbers. How well did it sell? Did people buy it? Because also they look at the numbers of the game. Are people actually quitting the game? You know, these are all factors that matter. And the truth is, the companies that are having these microtransactions are working. This is where all the money's being made. And how can you justify making a game that's such a small scope, that's trying to be a bit moral and doesn't have microtransactions, when you can make another game that has microtransactions, has a battle pass, that makes $1 billion?
Cause a huge amount of distrust in their player base. Square Enix released their notification of extraordinary losses, which is absolutely mental. Again, as I said, I've done a video on it. Xbox has just the other day basically closed a load of subsidiaries for Bethesda, which was horrendous considering some of those have released games which are absolute bangers.
By the way, I actually want to contextualize this a bit because I don't think people realize. I remember this was in the discussion when Microsoft was considering buying Activision, that Activision Blizzard already had a ton of debt in the first place. They already had money problems, even though they were doing this. There's already talk about studios closing down even before the buyout. So, you know, the fact that these studios are closing down isn't as surprising to me because I already kind of saw this coming.
And Warner Brothers have announced that they're going to only focus on key franchises such as Mortal Kombat and Harry Potter going forward, and even those are going to an extent, get bastardized into service games, apparently. The general call to action, it seems, from the execs, is that they want to make more mobile games.
There's a lot of money in mobile games, and a lot of people play mobile games. That's really smart.
Make a whole load of service games with millions of microtransactions so that they can have a constant feed of money coming in off of the general consumer. And they essentially want to put less and less emphasis on traditional one-player games, which you basically pay for once.
That's smart. Because you buy the game once. You know, these are games that we've already been seeing rushed out. And if the game has problems that you're trying to fix, guess what? That's money you're spending out of pocket after you already made your money back. Why? There's not really a financial incentive to fix the game. Where a multiplayer game, it requires more maintenance, but there's more money to be made. You
to buy their games and then own nothing and then continue to feed them and then be happy with that. So let me ask you, bearing in mind that most of these decisions that are being made are not actually in the interest of the gamers who are going to be buying and playing these games, but rather only in the short-term interest of shareholders,
By the way, that seems true because you see people online complain about it and say they don't like it. The truth is, it is true. Because, again, the numbers... You know, the numbers, and by numbers I mean the games like Call of Duty making $1 billion, however much money Diablo 4 made. These are people that are spending money on this game, and the truth is, people listen to, these executives listen to people's wallets, and people's wallets are saying, give me more of this game, please. Like Diablo 4, people, when all the stuff people are spending on this game, people are basically saying to Blizzard, give me more of this game, please, give me more, I want more. Because if you didn't want more of it, then you shouldn't be spending money on it, right? Because that's just the world we live in. They're looking at the numbers of people buying all these microtransactions, and people are putting up with it. People are buying them. So why would they not do it? Because the customers are telling them, give me more. Why would they not give them more? They're giving the customers, the consumers, exactly what they're asking for. It's not They're not listening to the minority of people on Reddit that are saying, oh, well, this game is bad, you shouldn't be playing it. Because the types of people that play these games, they don't care that much. They just want to play a video game.
Is making products that we don't want, and gamers don't want, going to fix anything. I've come up with two different perspectives as to how this can both have a positive effect and a negative effect, but will ultimately end up sending gaming into a doom spiral. Okay, so the positive consequence. Short-term financial stability. Prioritizing shareholder interests through strategies such as implementing microtransactions and developing mobile and service-based games can provide short-term financial boost. This approach may help stabilize companies financially by tapping into consistent revenue streams, thus allowing them to survive market fluctuations and maintain operational capabilities. This financial stability could potentially enable companies to invest in new technologies and innovative projects in the future. This is what they want, but it doesn't mean that this is what they're going to get.
I'll be honest, the only way this wouldn't happen is if the consumers have enough. And to be honest, I don't know if that's going to happen, because the people playing this game aren't the people playing these games, isn't the type of person that's going on Reddit or going on Twitter and making a post about why they're playing this game or why it's bad, or they don't care about making a post. And these are the people that are playing these games. And the truth is, the only way this will change is if people have enough. And to be honest, I don't see any signs that people will have enough.
And then the negative consequences: long-term consumer distrust. Making products that prioritise profit over player satisfaction can lead to consumer distrust and resentment. Gamers might feel their loyalty and investments are undervalued if they perceive that their interests are consistently secondary to corporate profits. This growing dissatisfaction could lead to a decline in brand loyalty, reduced engagement, and ultimately a decrease in the customer base. Over time, this might erode the company's reputation and financial performance, leading to a negative spiral affecting future.
I mean, if this was true, then EA would no longer exist. EA has to be the most shit-on company, video game company, in the world. Yet that game still makes money. Let's actually take a look real quick. Now, this doesn't give a number, but look, Madden NFL's 2024 video game sales remain strong in October, remaining 3rd to 5th in sales. And here's another one. This was 7 whenever this game came out. EA is pleased with Madden NFL 2024, but considering changes. So, whatever the sales are, EA is happy with. So, all this complaining about EA isn't doing anything. So, you know, you could say all you want. Oh, this company's terrible. Oh, they're going to ruin their reputation. I thought EA has ruined their reputation, yet they're still making money.
Profitability and viability. We have to be honest though, I think we're already at this stage. So what can we learn from all of this? Basically, the overconfidence generated in the game industry from the record pandemic profits is completely unfounded and ridiculous, because of course people weren't going to continue gaming to the very same level as soon as they were allowed back outside again, because people were allowed to go out and watch or play sports. They could visit family and friends. They were finally allowed to, you know, go on holiday abroad. I
will be honest though, right? I do think, like, she is right about this, right? That there is, right, all these studios are closing down. I think really what we're going to see is a different approach to making these games that allows these games to be more profitable.
Able to even go to restaurants and basically spend time outside touching grass again after a year of not being allowed to. And then also something else to consider is that people in America, their stimulus checks won't have lasted all that long, so they wouldn't have been able to sit there and pay for more games. They would have probably wanted to.
I mean, there is welfare. I mean, you could do that.
Go out and actually spend their money on something a bit more meaningful than being stuck indoors. So gaming, once again, at that point, would have ended up as a smaller part of life again, like it was prior to the pandemic. But then there's even more to it than that, because essentially the new normal is not normal. I don't really know how else to explain it, but life is different now than it ever was before the pandemic happened.
Well, that's like a weird thing though about something being normal, is the only real way to define something being normal is by consistency, because, right, people say all the time, the only constant in life is change. Obviously, the life without the pandemic would have changed. And it's interesting to imagine a world without the pandemic, what 2024 would be like, but it would still be different. I think the pandemic really made the changes that happened more noticeable. And then there were changes from the pandemic as well.
I mean, for one thing, away from gaming, the greater world is struggling to bounce back after all of these lockdowns. A massive, really obvious example of this is Putin. He exploited the world whilst it was weak and used that as almost like a perfect opportunity to invade the Ukraine. This has ended up leading to the oil and gas crisis that has been felt all over the world, regardless of which countries have their own reserves or not. And the general consumer is more or less a bit poorer than they were prior to the pandemic. And they've got...
And there's, you know, I don't know about other countries, but the ones I've looked at, like the first world countries, you know, the trend I've been seeing is they're all struggling with housing, finding somewhere to live.
Other priorities to spend their money on rather than just trivial stuff like games. So maybe, just maybe, we can't fully blame the gaming industry for their short-sightedness in these unprecedented times.
Well, I think these points, though, only explain why video games are only $60. Because these factors won't stop people from playing games. It will just stop them from buying as many games. But the truth is, a game being $60 or $30 in some cases, it's enough where people can, you know, save enough money to buy it if they needed to. You know, some people are in worse situations than others, but if they really want a game, they can get their hands on it.
We can. We absolutely can. I think that the gaming industry did know that this would happen, but they needed investor confidence. That's it. They needed money to be able to continue doing what they were doing. But history shows us that pandemics are usually 1/3 of a dark triad, with the other parts of the triad being economic downturns and wars. So when you take into consideration that this is actually the 4th time in recorded history that this has very prominently happened, before the video game industry was falling, the Roman Empire fell.
All right, there is a clear difference between the crash of a country and a crash of a video game market. This to be clear, I get what she's saying, but I think that is a bit of a stretch.
Roman Empire, and bear with me, stick with me on this. This isn't a reach. I've got facts to back this up. Number 1, the Antonine Plague and the Marco-Manic Wars, 165 to 180 AD. The pandemic was the Antonine Plague, which was possibly smallpox or measles. It struck the Roman Empire and killed millions.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a stretch because there was a pandemic. I'm saying it's a stretch because this is a country that fell. But I want to hear if she has other examples.
Significantly weakening the Roman population. Then the war, at the same time as that was actually going on, Rome was engaged in the Marco-Manic Wars against the Germanic tribes, which stretched the empire's military resources. So, put it this way, the Roman Empire fell to Gothic titties. And then economic impact. The plague and wars together led to labour shortages, decreased agricultural production, so basically starving people, and a strained economy, contributing to the empire's eventual decline. If anyone's wondering why the Roman Empire...
Well, again, right, let's say, right, because obviously, right, you already talked about financial struggles people are having. You know, if every market is crashing, can you really say that's a video game crash? You know, because if there's a video game crash, you know, the implication is the video game market exclusively is crashing despite whatever the environment is, right? Where, you know, could we see everything crash and then technically the video game market would also crash? Sure. But even then, you know, video game market exists beyond the United States and beyond, you know, other countries, where if one fails, you know, or isn't doing well, there's still other countries that exist.
It didn't last longer than it should have. But here we go. Here's an old favourite that everybody all knows about. The Black Death. The Black Death. Has anyone considered what the Black Death might have to do with a possible video game crash in 2024 or 2025? I've considered it, and here we go. The Black Death and the 100 Years' War. 1347 to 1351, during the ongoing War of 1337 and 1453 between Britain and France. So the pandemic at the time was everyone's old favourite, the bubonic plague, the Black Death, which swept through Europe and ended up killing an estimated 1/3 of the population. This period overlapped with the 100 Years' War between England and France, which strained both countries' resources and economies. And the economic impact of this, the pandemic caused massive... I'm not laughing at the horrible suffering, I'm just laughing that I've managed to link
Well, they're thousands of years old, so it's fine.
to the gaming crash. The pandemic caused massive labour shortages, leading to economic stagnation and severe social upheavals, compounded by the ongoing costs and disruptions of war.
Yeah, that affects everything, not just the video game market. So, you know, I see why she's saying this. But this really is a better argument that the economy will crash instead of the video game market will crash.
100 straight years of war indirectly caused, or directly caused, by the Black Death. And then there's a third part. The third one, my third example for this is, I'm not allowed, are we allowed to say this anymore? I don't know. The Spanish...
Alright. I skipped over it in case we couldn't, but it was
the Spanish flu, which emerged on the final year of the First World War and continued into the post-war period, which
I get the point, right? I wanted to see what
killing
crashed.
An estimated 50 million, which on itself was a massive drain on resources and had already weakened the populations of many, many countries, making them more susceptible to disease. And then the economic impact of that was that the combination of the war and the pandemic led to significant economic downturns across the globe with production.
So like, yeah, this is a good argument that, okay, after pandemics, the economies do bad, but not really for, okay, pandemics mean that certain markets crash where other ones thrive.
Slowdowns, labor force reductions. And
I'm gonna leave the video here though. Definitely check her out, this channel out if you want to. Lady Decade, interesting channel, you know. It seems like she makes other videos, you know. Definitely check her out. And if you enjoyed this video, definitely consider subscribing. Yeah, I hope all you have a great day, and thank you for watching.